You know that feeling when something is bothering you deeply and you try to bring it up with a parent, and somehow the conversation ends up being about them? Maybe they got defensive. Maybe they made you feel guilty for even bringing it up. Maybe you ended up comforting them when you were the one who needed comfort in the first place. If that sounds familiar, this video might explain a lot about your life. Most people who grew up with emotionally immature parents don't realize it until well into adulthood. And that's not because they weren't paying attention. It's because emotionally immature parenting rarely looks dramatic from the outside. There was no obvious abuse in many cases. The bills were paid. You went to school. Life looked fine. But something always felt off, like a gap you couldn't explain, like you were lonely in a house full of people. Today, we're going to walk through some of the signs, not to blame anyone, because most emotionally immature parents were never taught how to do better, but because understanding what happened to you is the first step to understanding yourself.
One of the clearest signs is this. As a child, you became an expert at reading your parents' mood. You could tell by the way they walked through the door whether it was going to be a good evening or a tense one. You adjusted yourself accordingly. You made yourself smaller, quieter, more agreeable, not because you wanted to, but because it felt necessary. This is called emotional parentification, and it's exhausting because it means your emotional energy as a child was spent managing an adult instead of simply being a child. The long-term effect? Many people who grew up this way find it incredibly difficult to identify what they actually feel in a given moment. They're so used to scanning others that they lost touch with themselves. You came home upset about something at school. Maybe a friend had hurt you. Maybe something embarrassing happened. And instead of being heard, you were told to stop being so sensitive, or that it wasn't a big deal, or the subject was changed entirely. Over time, you got the message. Your emotional world was an inconvenience. So you learned to deal with things alone, to process quietly, to not burden people. And on the surface, that might even look like strength. But underneath, it's often deep loneliness, because you never really learned that your feelings were valid and worthy of someone's attention.
This one is painful to sit with. You knew your parent loved you, but somewhere along the way, you picked up that the love felt more available when you were performing well, when you were achieving, when you weren't causing problems, when you were easy. The moment you struggled, really struggled, emotionally or personally, the support felt thin. Emotionally immature parents aren't able to tolerate their child's emotional complexity. It overwhelms them. So they pull back, or they minimize, or they redirect to something more comfortable. And the child internalizes a quiet, devastating belief. I am more lovable when I am manageable. That belief follows people into their adult relationships in ways they often don't even recognize.
Think about the last time, or any time, you had a genuine disagreement with your parent. How did it end? Did you both get to speak? Was your perspective genuinely considered? Or did it end when they decided it was over, either through anger, silence, guilt, or simply acting like nothing happened? Emotionally immature parents struggle deeply with rupture and repair. They don't have the emotional tools to sit in discomfort, acknowledge fault, and genuinely reconcile. So conflicts either explode and then get buried, or they get resolved only when the child surrenders. And again, the child learns something. My feelings only matter up to the point where they become inconvenient for someone else. Sign 5. You became the responsible one very early, not just with chores or younger siblings,
but emotionally responsible. The one who kept things calm. The one who didn't add to the stress. The one who was so mature for their age. Adults probably said that to you as a compliment. But being forced into emotional maturity before you were ready isn't a compliment. It's a child doing the work an adult should have been doing. And many people who wore that responsible one hat spend their adult life exhausted because they have been holding things together for other people since they were small. Here's what's important to hold on to as you process any of this. Emotionally immature parents are not monsters. Most of them are simply people who were never given what they needed either. They parented from the emotional toolkit they had, and for many of them, that toolkit was painfully limited. Understanding this doesn't mean excusing the impact it had on you. Both things can be true. They did their best, and their best left some wounds. The work isn't about going back and fixing the relationship, though some people do find healing there. The work is about recognizing the patterns you developed to survive, and slowly, gently, learning that you no longer have to live by them. You are allowed to feel your feelings. You are allowed to take up space. You are allowed to have needs that matter. That's not something you have to earn.
If this video resonated with you, I'd really like to hear from you. Which of these signs hit closest to home? And when did you first start to realize that what you experienced growing up wasn't quite as normal as you thought?